So, some exciting news. We've literally just been for our 12-week scan today, this morning. I've been waiting for this moment to actually like tell everyone, be able to talk about the pregnancy, particularly to fully talk around the first trimester. If you're watching this because you are in the first trimester as well, you maybe like early on or however far on you are, you will know how lonely of a time it can be and how like weird of a time it can be. Like, you might not be telling people you're pregnant yet, but you're going through so many symptoms and so much change. So I wanted to make this video because I want to be super honest around like my signs, all of my symptoms, how I found the first trimester, particularly with it being my second. Also, I really want to put out quite a positive video and a positive experience that will hopefully be very reassuring to anyone watching this. Because this is my second pregnancy, I can now say firsthand that every pregnancy is so different, even if you are the same person. Like, this is so different to my first one, and not only physically but honestly like mentally as well. I feel like I'm just in such a different place to when I was going through the first trimester with my daughter, and I think I learned a lot in that experience. I'm going to be sharing like the signs, how we found out we were pregnant, the symptoms throughout this first trimester, things that I found really worked for me, so hopefully it's actually really useful as well. I'll put every link in the description and stuff. Just a good old rundown that will hopefully make you feel a lot less alone, but also just quite like calmed by this and reassured, I hope, because I would have loved that when I was even in this first trimester, never mind like with my first ever pregnancy. Okay, so let's go right back to the beginning. I think I fell pregnant around early August, at least like within those first 2 weeks, I believe. We're aware of like ovulation times and stuff like that. I think I got like the Flow app or something, and I was like tracking it all. I was ovulating around the 15th, but I think it might have actually been a little bit out and it was a little bit earlier because we just got the scan today and they've actually measured us at 13 weeks with a due date of 6th of May. So I think it was early August, like the 10th of August or something like that, in case you wanted to know the date. I was so convinced I wasn't pregnant. Like, I was just so convinced. The reason I was convinced it wasn't going to happen is because I think I'd taken like 6 or 5 pregnancy tests before, so like across the months, and they were all negative, and I had convinced myself then that I had pregnancy symptoms when they were just period symptoms and everything was actually on time and stuff. So I think I got to a point, I remember like talking to my fiance Reese and being like, I don't think we'll have one this year, like maybe we wait until next year. I was planning on leaving my job to do content creation and stuff, so I was like, do you know what, it would actually be less in the mix if I like didn't have a baby within the next year. It was that month that we felt pregnant, and I hear so many people saying like, once you stop trying, like once you stop thinking about it, it'll happen. And sod's law, I ended up actually having the conversation at my work to hand in my notice, and I was confident that I was gonna, you know, leave work and do content creation, and I kid you not, that conversation was on the Wednesday, and then randomly on the Thursday I was just like, do you know what, I feel like I might have a couple of symptoms here, and I'll go into those in a minute. I'm just gonna take a test, and it was the most solid line ever. And I also just think it's such a hard time to actually know symptoms. Honestly, a period symptom can be a sign of pregnancy, so it's a really confusing time. And I know for a lot of people, like in the pregnancy content and stuff that I've watched, it's like the 2-week wait where like between the conception date to finding out that you're pregnant, it's just like you kind of don't know in that time whether you're in the lead up to a period or whether you're in the lead up to finding out that you're pregnant, and it can be a very tough time. I say for me, I think because I wasn't tuned in to symptoms or anything at all, and I just thought my period would be coming, I didn't really feel like I had any, to be honest. The only thing that stood out to me, that is what made me want to take a test, was the fact that I felt like my boobs were big and honestly I just felt like my boobs hurt. Next up is the fun stuff, which is the first trimester symptoms. If any of these symptoms make you then like anxious around what could come, please don't worry about it, because first off, you don't know that it could happen, and secondly, it can go as quickly as it comes, as I've learned. And also, if you're not having them, don't worry about the pregnancy and stuff. Like, it's so different for everyone. Just for a little bit of context, with my daughter, with my first pregnancy, I had a very bad sickness and it lasted pretty much the entire first trimester. This time around, I remember finding out I was pregnant and being like, whoa, my only symptom is tender boobs, like I don't feel sick yet. And then I got to 5 weeks and I also didn't feel sick, so I was like, okay, maybe this is going to be such a different pregnancy, like I don't feel sick at all, this is brilliant. So the only symptoms that I had really from like when I found out to around the 6-week mark was quite a bit of tiredness compared to normal. Then unfortunately it got to 6 weeks and the sickness hit. And when I say it hit me like a ton of bricks. This for me is when mentally I felt my weakest. And I think it's because, again, I had had a pregnancy before where I had the sickness and it lasted. And I remember that week having work to juggle and also having a 3-year-old as well who wants to play with me, who wants me to get up, wants me to jump on the bed with her. Like, I couldn't just lie down, I had to show up in life. And I was just like, I can't do this. Like, how am I going to do this for 3 months? I think the most I ate that week was like a bowl of plain noodles. I was having like plain digestive biscuits, and that's about all I could stomach. I was not only feeling sick and stuff, but like the sickness would come up for me. So it was like a couple of times in the night and a few times in the day. At that point, I was just like, oh my God, this is going to be a horrendous pregnancy. I've not been that lucky one who doesn't have sickness. Like, I've got it again. I can't have this last this long. Everything's gonna have to be put on hold. This is why I really want to share it, because I was so surprised at the fact that it went. And that is so different to what I had experienced in the past. It wasn't a 3-month thing at all. The only thing that I would say here though is that if you've ever experienced this, you'll know the type of mental game that you feel like you're in, and it is really hard. Is that once that sickness feeling went away, I then panicked about the pregnancy and the baby. Like, you hate the symptom and you want the symptom to go away, and then it does, and you're suddenly like, oh my God, is the baby okay? It's a really tricky time to be in, and this is why I just think it's so good to talk around the first trimester, because if you're going through anything like that, like, and it could be anything, like you could suddenly think like, okay, my back hurts, and then the next week, okay, it doesn't hurt. What does this mean? Like, it's a really anxious time. And so for me, I just found it very anxiety inducing at that point. I also had a bit of cramping and a little bit of brown spotting at the time. So I messaged the midwife straight away and told her my symptoms, and she booked me in for an early scan appointment at the hospital. We went in at 8 weeks in and got the early scan on the NHS to check that everything was okay, and baby was fine. We saw a heartbeat, all was good. And that for me was just like such a different experience to any anxiety and worry that I'd had in my first pregnancy. When I felt anxious and worried in my first pregnancy, I Googled incessantly. I was on Mumsnet, I was on every forum, looking at every community thing within an app and stuff, and looking at everyone else's symptoms and just being like, what happened with theirs? Is mine any different? Like, what happened to them? And like trying to map what was happening to me onto them. And again, it's kind of like, your pregnancy is honestly just going to be your pregnancy. And whilst it can be really comforting to see what happened with other people, I really made a conscious effort to not Google anything and to not look on any forums, and just go straight into talking to the midwife, being seen to at the hospital, getting a scan, and there was what I needed to know. Now from that week onwards, everything felt so much easier. Not necessarily like physically, like there's been other physical symptoms, but just mentally it felt a lot easier. I was like, okay, I found the thing that works for me. Googling and forums and stuff just doesn't really work for me. Talking directly to a midwife, getting seen to if I feel like I need to, is just the way to go. And thankfully from that point on, I haven't had any reason to like need to do any of that, but I feel like I kind of knew my game plan, if that makes sense. And from there, I honestly like had different symptoms, and I was just kind of almost glad to see some symptoms, do you know what I mean? And be like, okay, this is progressing, or this is developing, this is new, it must be the pregnancy. And I just kind of felt almost like comforted by them, because they weren't as bad as being sick all the time. The other symptoms that I've had for the past 3 weeks, honestly, in my experience, have felt like later pregnancy symptoms. I have a little bit of a bump. I don't have like necessarily like a bump, but there's a stomach there that I can't suck in. Like, I get so out of breath, like so out of breath. Another symptom that I have already is lower back pain. Now for me, I don't know if this is because I had a C-section with my daughter. She was a breech baby and she wouldn't turn, so we had a planned C-section. And part of me feels like maybe that's why I've like popped a bit sooner as well, is because I just have a very weak core now. Like, it's not a bad symptom now by any means, but it's I'm kind of already thinking, okay, what do I do when the bump's bigger? Like, what if it hurts my back a bit more? So I don't know what I can do to help support my back. If anyone does know anything, let me know. But I'm kind of already anticipating that I think I'm going to struggle with my lower back this pregnancy a bit more than I did the last one. The next main symptom that I've had makes me laugh a little bit, because I've just never experienced anything like this before, and that I literally will not be hungry at all. Like, I'll almost feel a little bit like I don't fancy anything, like I don't want to think about food, like almost like an aversion to food in general. And then literally in an instant, I am the hungriest person, and not only am I absolutely starving, but I'm hungry for something very particular. It's as though nothing else will satiate the hunger other than that thing. So I think around like 3 weeks ago now, it was a Saturday and all I wanted to eat was a Sunday dinner. And I could not find anywhere open that would do a Sunday dinner. Along with that, one that's happened lately, so only just in the past like week or so, as I'm probably starting to get a bit more of a bump and stuff, is I'm starting to get a bit of indigestion, which again I feel like is so early on. I don't think I got this until the 3rd trimester with Ivy, but after I eat, it's almost like all the food's just sitting here, which is so frustrating when you've just ate so much. Now the next couple of symptoms that I've had are quite weird. I don't know if they're unique to me or if other people have them as well, but I need cold things. Like, I will love nothing more at the end of the day than like a pint of iced water with some lemon in, or ideally like a lemon and lime really cold fizzy drink, or a really cold lime and soda. Honestly, like I need it now. Like, I just love it so much. Or like the thought of a glass of Nando's ice. You know how Nando's ice, that you can crunch it? The thought of that is just like the best thing in the world right now. Moving on to like nighttime and nighttime symptoms. I'm already having to get up to go to the toilet like 2 or 3 times at least. And it's so frustrating, but thankfully I've been able to go back to sleep pretty soon. And the other weird nighttime one that I have is very vivid dreams. Not every night and not all of the night. I just know that like for some of that period of time where I've like nipped up to go to the loo and gone back to sleep, I've gone into such a vivid dream. Like, I can't even explain it. Does anyone else have this when they're pregnant? Like, it's absolutely crazy. The other night I had the most vivid dream that I got 2 black Labrador puppies, and it was like when I say it was vivid, like I'm not joking, like I could literally like feel them, feel their little like puppy fat rolls. Like, it was so wild. It was like the best night of my life, and I mean, it wasn't even real, but it felt so real. Going on to any other things that have like helped me out and stuff this pregnancy or this time round, I've been wearing leggings a lot. I already can't fit into, or just, even if I could fit into them, right, I just don't want to fit into jeans. Like, the thought of having a pair of jeans on right now is just not for me. Like, I just don't want to do it. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I don't necessarily feel great all the time. Sometimes I feel like I can still wear a nice top, and that's fine, but I kind of am not loving the outfit from the bottoms down. So I am on the hunt for some more like pregnancy friendly, or just like comfort first type of clothes that feel like I can still wear them if we're meeting up with friends or something like that. Like, I also picked up some more seamless underwear from Primark just because I really wanted to feel comfortable, and again, all of the knickers and stuff were feeling too tight for me, and I was just like, this isn't worth it. And then I really wanted to talk about these. If you are feeling any type of morning sickness, I basically got these pressure point bands from Amazon literally straight away this time. I had them within my last pregnancy and I didn't discover them until later on, and I wore these from when I started being sick. So like, I literally ordered them the next day. I wore them like through that week 6, honestly all the way up until I think around week 9, week 10. I feel like these are my lifeline. Honestly, nothing worked as well as these. People also say like drink ginger tea and stuff, and I used to get so annoyed worked. And it did not work for me. Like, honestly, I can barely stomach water, so the last thing I'm gonna want is some strong flavor like ginger. I didn't even have one ginger tea this time around. I went straight to these, and these really helped me. And so despite me having had a bout of sickness and a couple of the physical symptoms and a bit of an anxious few days when we got the early scan, overall I've had a very, very positive first trimester, despite how hard the first trimester is. Like, it is challenging both physically and mentally, and I've came out of it feeling so calm and so happy and content. I hope that shows you that you can feel that way, even if you've had some bad physical symptoms and even if you have felt anxious as well. So yes, 13 weeks, we are due on the 6th of May. It would mean the absolute world if you subscribed as I continue through this pregnancy and becoming a mum of 2. And I upload pretty much every week, so I'll see you in the next video. Bye!